First off, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't know if it's pronounced Wurkkos or Wurkkos, but I'm going to go with Wurkkos. But anyway, a couple of weeks ago I received an email from Wurkkos asking me if I would be willing to review one of their lights. At first I wasn't interested, if for no other reason than the fact that they spelled my channel name wrong, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to give the light a closer look. When I did, I was intrigued by the unique design and surprised to see that the light utilized a Samsung high CRI emitter, and decided that it was interesting enough to take a sample to review. So yes, I received this light from Wurkkos as a review sample, and I thank them for sending it as it is a pretty cool light, but I will still be completely honest in this review and will not try to lie to please the maker of the light. Thankfully though, this will be pretty easy, as I have mostly very positive things to say about the WK30, and I won't have any trouble recommending this to someone looking for a cool and unique, but still very useful flashlight at an affordable price point. The light comes in a rather nice box and includes a USB cable, a lanyard, a battery tube adapter, and a pair of extra O-rings. Unfortunately, it does not come with an extra cover for either the button or the USB port. The light also comes with a protected 5000 mAh 26650 battery in the tube. The WK30 is another of the now fairly common single 26650 rechargeable lights. It is quite compact at 11.3 centimeters long and 3.7 centimeters wide, and weighs a mere 104 grams. The light is made of aluminum and has decent machining and anodizing, with a fairly good build quality overall. All of the threads are square cut and anodized, and the interior of the battery tube is fully anodized as well. There are springs in both the head and the tail, and both are gold plated. The body is completely smooth with no knurling to speak of, and nothing to stop it from rolling away. The driver has electrical reverse polarity protection, and according to the manufacturer, is built on a thermoelectric separation copper MC PCB. Interestingly, the PCB is branded by Sofern, which I believe is due to the fact that this light was indeed originally designed by Sofern. Moving up the head, the button is nice and clicky and has a rubber cover and a steel ring, which may look a little familiar to some of you. There are two RGB LEDs under the button cover that are used to indicate battery and charging status. On the reverse side of the head is the micro USB charging port, which is well mounted and feels solid. The rubber cover used on this light is actually very good, as it is nice and thick and seals very well. While I am still not a fan of rubber covered charging ports, this one is very nice and doesn't seem like it will be a major point of failure in the future. The pill has a nicely sized and decently machined heatsink, which does a very good job of keeping the light cool. The front of the light has a thick aluminum bezel and a very interesting arrangement for its three emitters. Many other lights will embed their secondary emitters into the main reflector, but here Wurkkos has decided to give each emitter their own isolated reflector. The emitters used are, well, a mouthful. Of note here is the use of the Samsung LH351D emitter, which will be discussed later in the review, but is a really nice high CRI LED. The reflector itself is smooth and appears to be machined out of aluminum, and the whole setup is covered with a piece of hardened mineral crystal glass. Unfortunately, the lens does not have any sort of anti-reflective coating. It is also worth noting that the emitters are not all centered very precisely, and on my model here there was a smudge on the underside of the lens, showing that the quality control was somewhat poor. Overall, the build of this light is decent, and I think it is appropriate for this price. While there are certainly areas that I think can be improved upon, the important parts are built to a high enough standard that I believe this flashlight is capable to standing up to some abuse, and will last a long time. It is tested to the usual IPX8 waterproofing standard, and is claimed to have a drop resistance of 1.5 meters. Considering how complex the light is, with 3 emitters and many modes, the interface is surprisingly intuitive and easy to get a handle on. However, there is still a lot going on here, and things can get a little confusing sometimes. In order to turn the light on, simply press the button. Pressing again will cycle through the standard modes of Eco, Low, Medium, and High. Pressing and holding will turn the light back off, and pressing and holding from off will start the light from Eco. When on the white modes, double tapping will activate strobe, and pressing will cycle through strobe, SOS, and beacon modes. Double tapping will revert back to normal modes, and pressing and holding will turn the light off. From off, double tapping will turn the red emitter on, and pressing will cycle through low, medium, and high. If you double tap the button while on the red modes, the light will enter a red beacon mode, and pressing will cycle between this and a flashing white and red mode. Long pressing will turn the light off, and double tapping will enter normal modes again. A triple tap from off will turn the UV emitter on, and it works the same as the others, but only has low and medium modes, and lacks any flashing modes. A double tap from the UV modes will switch to the standard white light. Quadruple tapping from off will enter lockout mode, which prevents the light from being operated to save battery life. If the button is pressed while in lockout, the white light will flash twice to inform you that it is locked. Quadruple tapping again will unlock the light. When turning the light on to any mode from off, the LEDs under the button will display either green or red for 5 seconds to indicate battery status. After the battery reaches critically low levels, the light will blink red. After the indicator disappears, the lights will pulse blue while the UV emitter is on to indicate that the light is activated. Clearly, there is a lot going on with this interface, and I have a lot to say about it. First off, and most importantly, the white and red modes are very easy to navigate, and I have not had any issues with them, which is good as these are the modes which will most likely see the most use. However, I did not find the UV and lockout mode so easy to activate, as the timing on the taps had to be pretty precise, which led me to sometimes activate one of the other modes and rapidly cycle through the levels. The only modes with mode memory are the white output levels, while the red and UV emitters always start from low. I appreciate this design as it ensures that you always start from the lower outputs and work up without having to add any extra interface shortcuts. The interface works very smoothly for the most part, but I have encountered one glitch while switching from the red flashing mode to the white light mode, in which both emitters stayed on. After turning the light off and on again, it reset itself, and I have not had any other issues with the interface or driver. I will admit that while I think the interface is a good one, I have dealt with some confusion as the methods for turning the light on and off and cycling through the modes is literally the opposite from the system that ThruNite uses, which I have gotten very used to. I also find it strange that eco mode is part of the regular cycle of white light levels, as cycling from high to eco can be very disorienting in the dark. I also wish there was a way to instantly get to the high output, but the interface is already so loaded that I can't really think of a way to do that. When charging, the LEDs under the button will flash red until turning solid green when finished. While charging, the interface is completely different, as any pressing of the button will simply turn low mode on and off, and long pressing from off will activate eco. Neither the red nor the UV emitters will activate. The light charges with a claimed current of about 1.5 amps, and if I'm being honest, I don't actually know what the standby drain is. This flashlight uses a current-controlled circuit, and as far as I can tell, all the modes are closely matched to the advertised output levels. The light does not have an intelligent temperature control, instead relying on a built-in timer that reduces the output of high after 3 minutes to keep the emitter from overheating. To be honest, as is the case with many lights that have come out recently, I do not see the point of the highest output level. It will only run for 3 minutes before dropping down to 600 lumens for the remainder of the runtime. While 600 lumens is still plenty bright, and more than enough for most applications, I would hesitate to really call it a 1200 lumen light, as you only get that high of an output for a very brief period of time. It may seem strange at first for a modern 26650 light to have such a relatively low output, but the reason is because Wurkkos has elected to use the Samsung LH351D emitter. This emitter is not as efficient and therefore not as bright as comparative Cree LEDs, but it more than makes up for it with its excellent color reproduction. The LH351D has a temperature of about 5000 K and an impressively high CRI of 90, giving it a very pleasing natural white beam and realistic color reproduction. The reflector may be small, but the beam is very smooth with no artifacts, and has almost no visible tint shift. The maximum intensity of the light is 2579 candela, and it has a nice wide beam pattern that covers a wide area, and is very good for general use. This unique LED is definitely one of the main selling points for this flashlight, and I think makes it a very appealing option for collectors and flashlight nerds like myself. As for the other emitters, the red LED is a Cree XPE that is also very impressive. The beam is definitely not as clean as the white, and has many noticeable concentric rings and artifacts. I can still forgive it, as it is vastly superior to most lights that use embedded secondary emitters, but it's not nearly as clean as the other two modes. I'm impressed with the output of the red emitter, and personally I'm a big fan of red beams for preserving night vision, so I'm at least glad that this is here. The ultraviolet emitter is an LG UV LED which produces about a 395 nanometer wavelength beam at a really powerful 2 watts on maximum. The LED produces quite a bit of purple spill, but at least it is arranged in a nice smooth beam. The emitter is very effective and makes objects fluoresce very brightly on its highest output. The heat management on this light is also very impressive, as it never gets more than slightly warm. This is really nice to see on a light of this type, as they often tend to get very hot very quickly. Overall, the performance of this light is very good, and I am really impressed with it. This flashlight is probably a little more than a novelty for most buyers, but I cannot deny that it is still well built and a really cool design. More so, I find the specific emitter choices used to be very appealing, and I found myself quite enjoying my testing of the WK30. There are some things that can be improved, especially the build quality, but at the price point of less than $40, I think this light is a great value and is easy for me to recommend. Truthfully, I would like to see Wurkkos sell a lot more of these just so I can see what other interesting flashlights they produce in the future. Anyways, I'd like to thank Wurkkos for sending this to me for review, and I would like to thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you enjoyed, then please give it a like and maybe share, and also perhaps maybe subscribe to my channel. If you hated this video or my guts, I guess you can tell me in the comments. Also, if you have any suggestions for how I can improve these videos, or for products I should review in the future, please let me know.